What's good, guys? Long time no see. Sorry, I haven't posted in a long time. I got lazy. Anyways, since it's summer, I just decided to do more content and stuff like that. So get ready for that, lol. I'm gonna try doing the opposite art style challenge. I know it's an old art trend, but I was feelings a little different, so I just did that. Also, maybe because I don't touch grass and I stay in all day sometimes and I got nothing to do, so I just did this. So enjoy this video, and yeah. Also, if you have any, please give me some tips on editing easier and faster. Even give me an app to use because editing takes me so long. I don't know how people do it. So, yeah, on to the process. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will draw my current art style on the left side. Basically the art style I always use. And don't ask why I wrote this down for so long. And the right side will be the opposite. For the base of the body, I just did a normal front view angle because I always be doing 3/4 quarter views. And if you think I don't do that well, if you look at my Ibis paint page, then you will understand all my paintings look the same. Y'all, I think I have same face syndrome. That's really sad. Anyways, I'm drawing my OC Sika. I originally made her because I wanted to make a webtoon. Some of y'all saw that on my community page, I hope. But I gave up. Making webtoons are really hard. Respect for the people who make them. It's super complicated. I'll try making the webtoon again sometime in the future. I also partly stopped making it because I have a lazy ass. So I basically just made her as my normal OC. Because what else would I use her for? I tried to make the pose look dramatic, but it low-key looks like she's trying to scratch her nose or something. Bro looks like she's sniffing something. Also, in my original style, you can see how I just start the sketch and go straight to rendering. I avoid doing line art because you know how there are times where you think the sketch looks better than the line art. So just erasing parts you don't want on your sketch makes it look like what you vision it to be. I also go back and add thicker lines so it doesn't look as messy. I kinda ate with drawing that hand, not gonna lie. The problem is, she has no fingernails. Liquify also saves lives. Just making this bigger to fit the box. I'm making her in her school uniform because why not? I absolutely love using the lasso erase tool. This majestic tool makes the process so much easier and faster than using the eraser normally. Whenever I use the eraser, I have to constantly change the brush size to erase different spots of my sketch. Doing this, you don't have to do that. The base colors were put on the painting using the lasso fill tool, which is also very convenient. I like making the eyelashes as it is piercing her skin, almost like how I pierce my time every day playing Roblox.
Light. There's Roblox.
Anyways, for the shadows, I used a purple on my multiply layer because I was going for a cooler vibe. Using different colors when you're adding shadows can really change the overall feeling of your drawings. This also differs on your background of the character. Like if you're in a club or something, then the shadows will change. Then I finally started on adding the reds and oranges to the skin, because I don't want her to look like a flipping vampire. I just use a color that is slightly more saturated, more red, and darker than the base color. Adding more red to the joints of the hands can also give more of a cold look and sometimes more intimidating. Of course, can't forget the yummy lips. I love adding a lot of red on the eye bags because it makes your character look like it's more evil. Because it makes them look more tired and all that. For hair shading, I just make a bunch of blobs then erase the edges to make it look like it's into groups. I honestly think rendering the hair is the worst part for me. It's because whenever I start shading it, it's always hit or miss on whether or not it looks good in the end. Like sometimes the hair strands don't look like they're in their right place. The highlights on the hair is more or less the same thing as the shading, but where the light is hitting it. You can see that drawings in my style are also more on the semi-realistic side than the anime side, if that makes sense. Like the proportions can be the same as you see in people, unlike what you see in anime. And finished. This is my normal style, basically a semi-realistic look that has some human proportions, but at the same time looks unrealistic. For the opposite art style, I was kinda going for a lavender town kind of style. Also, tips to her for making an incredible art style. I absolutely love her art so much. Also, I'm drawing the same character with the same clothes and everything, so you can see the comparison. I wanted to give her the same intimidating look, but cuter, in a way. Such as bigger eyes, smaller nose and mouth, chubbier jawline, and a more innocent look overall. I kinda made her eyes so big that it's starting to reach her ears. I just thought this was an interesting way to stylize art. I also made her eyelashes much more pointy, which I will make more noticeable later. For the hair, I made the edges of it much more pointy to give it a more cartoony style. Because if you see those iconic cartoon characters, you can see how they are either really round or really pointy, if that makes sense. I also made the uniform a little different. I made the collar pointier, and instead of a necktie, I used a ribbon because it gave it a more cutesy look, in a way. I also exaggerated her silhouette more, like her jacket hoodie was more noticeable. Drawing the hand was funny to me because it looks even more like she's trying to scratch something. I also decided to make the sketch and then do the line art because I normally don't do line art in my normal drawings, as said earlier. I made the eyelashes so thick. She's starting to look like a rip-off version of Nicki Minaj or something with those eyelashes. I also made some of the colors slightly more vibrant and more colorful. I also made the hair outline and color on a separate layer. I will show why I did that later. I made the blush extra blushy to give her that iconic sunburnt look. And I might as well just put the blush all over the forehead because I wanted to make it as pink as possible. And the hands too, why not? I drew those lines on the nose too because Lavender Town does that, and I think it looks very stylistic. And I had to make the lips smaller too because it's not what I do usually, sadly. I made the eye bags more visible and didn't blend them out as much as I did to the other drawing. More blush. Bro looks like a flipping clown. Olaf? I don't know him. I worked a little bit more on the face rendering for a little bit, which took so long for no reason, and then I finally worked on the other parts. On the shadows, I used more sharp edges than blending out everything because I wanted it to look more simplistic. Like, instead of shading every individual finger here, I just did one blob. Even in the clothing, I just did a bunch of shapes instead of making more soft edges. Even the BOBA doesn't need that. If you're doing this, when you're shading clothes, make sure to add triangles to the tension points. For the nose, I erased this little part because I wanted to add more hard edges. Also, can't forget the eyebrows because I don't want her to look bald. I also made her eyebrows much smaller. She kinda looks like she tried to get her eyebrows done and they got plucked out a little too much. I also made the hair simplified a lot more because it fit her more. I just added these ovals and then erased bumps of it so it looked like groups of hair. For the highlights, I basically did the same process but erased them more so the highlights were smaller. I also erased these little strands of hair. A little hack if you're not happy with the hair colors. I just slightly lowered the opacity of the highlights. Then I pressed the filter option, and I pressed the hue, saturation, lightness filter. Then I just changed around the settings until I made it to my liking. I made it into this purple-ish pinkish color because it made the vibe more colorful, if that makes sense. I just added a little more depth in the clothing here by adding a very slightly darker color. I also wanted to add a little pattern to the bow because the clothing was a little bit boring. So I added this little checkered pattern and just liquefied it so it wouldn't look like it's real. Work smart, not hard. Just adding more depth to the eye bags because I want her to look as sleep-deprived as possible. The reason I put both the outline and colors of the hair in a separate layer is so I could do this. I would use an airbrush eraser and slightly erase in parts where I want parts of the face to show, such as the eyes, eyebrows, and the ends of the hair. I think this looks so cool. Her hair kinda looks transparent. Then I added some contrast filters to add more color and lighten some of the features, because some of the lines were too heavy on the painting. Then I basically just merged all the layers here. I also added these little strands of hair because I wanted the hair to look more messy, like how you would typically see in those anime characters. I added this little annoyed symbol to her because I wanted her to look annoyed and not just make her look like she can't reach a scratch or something. I also wanted to add an outline to her silhouette because it made her look like a sticker or something, or like something you would buy in some merch. I personally think it added a nice touch to the drawing. I also did the same thing in my mesmerizer project. Then I just added these little yummy highlights to the drawings and I finished. My original art style looks kinda like what you would typically see in a webtoon or something. And the opposite side looks a lot more stylized than the left side. It kinda looks like some interesting cartoon. Believe it or not, I used to have an art style just like that. If you scroll all the way down, you could see my art style was completely different. Whoa, what happened to her hand? I don't even know what I did here. She looks like a Yu gamer girl. It's funny because this was my favorite drawing before. What the flip happened to her legs? The only thing that saved this drawing was the boba, of course. I think I drew this during a road trip or something. I really thought I ate. I failed so hard. Guys, life lesson here. Practice makes improvement. My art improved so much, as you can tell. Ooh, now this one shows improvement. This is where my art actually started to get better. My stylization is so different, as you can see. This one too. You can see I drew this during COVID because of the Animal Crossing. Megamind looking real nice for sure. I added like these little dots too. They make the drawing look like a comic. It's cool. After going through that trip through memory lane, I decided to add those little dots to the opposite version of my drawing. So I just selected a bunch of parts where I wanted the dots to be. Mostly the parts where there are some shadows. After finding it, I just made the size to my liking. Then I just slightly lowered the opacity of the dots. And done. I personally think the dots added a nice touch to the drawing. The opposite also looks a lot more flat, and the normal one looks like it has more shape to it for sure. Anyways, that will be it for this video. I really hoped you enjoyed it. Yes, I know that. I've been gone for a while, but I had things planned. I'm just happy to come back better than ever. Also, I'm begging you to give some tips on editing because I'm struggling. Again, thank you for watching and I'll see you again if you're still interested.